Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today we have an extraordinary opportunity to interview and get to know one of the most profound professors of service excellence and service marketing in the world, someone who I've had the pleasure of knowing personally and professionally over several years, Professor Jochen Wirtz. Jochen is, an extraordinary gentleman, deeply, deeply published, teaches worldwide, and one of the most talented experts in the field that you'll find anywhere online or when you get the privilege in person. This series of interviews will give Jochen a chance to tell us a little bit about himself and then answer a series of questions. Jochen, welcome.
Thank you, Ron. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You and I have known each other for years, but would you take a moment and just let the audience know about yourself, your background? How did you get so interested in this area of service, and what are you doing now?
That's very interesting, actually. I did first in my first career, I studied finance and accounting. And I did all the German banking exams. But I had a fantastic professor in my undergraduate days who just sort of kindled my passion for marketing. And when I went to graduate studies, I then focused completely on marketing. And again, there I had a professor, John Bateson, who was my PhD supervisor, who was focusing on services marketing. And given that I was in banking, and banking is a service, and my professor was in services marketing, that started sort of my journey on services marketing and today's service management, service science. So I've been working for over 30 years now in the services field, and it has been a great journey.
Yeah. And now your current position at the National University of Singapore is?
Yeah, I'm a professor of marketing, so still, and within marketing, still focusing on service. So I write books, I do research, I teach courses. And my second head at the university is I'm the Vice Dean Graduate Studies. So I look after all our executive MBA, MBA, and MSc programs, and I have quite a big team. So we do all the admissions, marketing, down to program management and graduating students. So it's great fun.
Fabulous. There's one more thing I'd like everyone to know about you before we dive into the specific questions, and that is you seem to have followed your wife over the years in writing some of your case studies. Tell us about that.
Actually, I followed her literally. The reason I'm in Singapore is she was an overseas scholar from Singapore Airlines and moved from London, we were in London before, to Singapore, and I followed her here. And given that she always worked in service companies, she's also finance economics major, by the way, and not in marketing, but she does marketing in most of her life. And yeah, so she worked for Singapore Airlines, and I was lucky enough, number one, to meet all of her colleagues, to hear a lot about Singapore Airlines, and then I started teaching executives in Singapore Airlines for over 12 years, did some consulting, so I gained great insights, which I then used. We did 2 books on Singapore Airlines, a Harvard Business Review article, a few other papers. So I always find this fascinating if you know someone who works in a company.
Yeah, and you know Jeanette very well.
Very well, right? So you will really get to see more than what you learn from interviews and observation.
Yeah.
And then when she moved from Singapore Airlines to Westin, we did a case study on Westin. Then she was at Banyan Tree, we did a case study on Banyan Tree. And she's now with Raffles Hotels, and we're working now on some cases also on Raffles Hotels and the opening of the new hotel in London.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah. And for those who'd like to know more about this amazing woman, Jeanette Ho,
yes,
can be found online and jochenwirtz.com. So, Jochen, tell us one more thing you'd like to say before we dive into the series of specific questions, either about you or about your view of the world and this whole evolution of service that's happening and where you see it going over the rest of your life that's still to come.
Yeah, it's terribly exciting, simply because technology is doing now what the Industrial Revolution did to manufacturing in the late 18th century. Everything is coming together now. All the components get cheaper and cheaper, from chips to robotics, to AI, to you name it. Everything is getting lighter, smaller, cheaper, and more powerful.
And more connected to each other.
And more connected to each other. And I'm convinced that AI and robotics and so on will really do what the Industrial Revolution did to manufactured goods. It will do that for services. So the current shortage of some basic services like education and healthcare, which are terribly expensive, but incredibly important. And I think that technology will really help to provide an answer to that is scalable and can be used for the good of the entire world.
So this fourth industrial revolution that we hear about today, where everything is connected and artificial intelligence and machine learning, is it actually a fourth service revolution that's going to occur worldwide?
I call it service revolution, yes.
Okay. So are you fundamentally an optimist about the future?
Yes, actually, I just came out from a think tank. We published a paper called Brave New World, Service Robots at the Front Line. And we had, was a few people in it. And whenever something was positive, it was called the Jochen scenario. And then one of my colleagues, he was very concerned about privacy, dehumanization, and all the other potential drawbacks of robotics. And that part was called the Werner scenario. Okay. So we had both in the team, the pessimists or the cautious people and the optimists. Of course, the truth will be somewhere in between.
Yeah, yeah, very good. Well, it's a pleasure to be with one of the optimists today, and welcome to this series with Professor Jochen Wirtz. Jochen, I am delighted to have this time together with you.
Thank you, Ron. Me too.